Let's pass these pages out. Boker Tov, Shavua Tov Muvarach to everyone. Thank you very much for coming here. We continue learning on the month of Tevet, sponsored by Alon and Jenny Englonoff, Leilu Nishmat Avram Chai Ben Yosef Shimon. This week, sponsored by the Adlers in memory of Shira Tzivia Bas Avram Zichrono Livrocha on her first yortzeit, and in honor of Marilyn's Abba, Siggy Weiser's 96th birthday. It was a special moment in Shul this Shabbos to see him there. Also, Leilu Nishmat Ruth Ahava Bat Yedidia Vidvora Zichrono Livrocha, and by Avram and Miriam Deutsch, memory of Avram's mother, Sarah Reza Bat Sion Bat Avram Yaakov on her 17th yortzeit, and Miriam's aunt, Leah Bat Shmuel Eliezer, on her 5th yortzeit. You know, just this name, I have to tell you. Avram Deutsch's mother, Sarah Reza Bat Sion Bas Avram Yaakov, Avram Deutsch's 17th, his mother's 17th yortzeit. I'll never forget this woman because, I don't know, about 6 or 7 years ago, no more, 7 or 8 years ago, probably like 7 years ago, one morning when we were still down in the bottom of Tuma Rav Weinberger Shlita came to visit us one morning, and it was a Kriyas Torah, and Avram had an Aliyah, and he said the name of his mother. And then, Rav Weinberger's whole world is Piasetzna and, Ish Kodesh, and Avram mentioned that his mother was named by the Piasetzna Rebbe, by the Ish Kodesh, Avram Deutsch. In our shul. Crazy. Now, Bat Sion, whatever, there's a lot going on here. But anyway, whenever I see her name here, I just get so transported to that world. His mother was named by the Ish Kodesh, by the Piasetzna Rebbe. Okay. To finish off the parak that we have today, the chapter that we have in front of us on the page, and in the Sefer, we're finishing. We're definitely going to finish because it's the last page. I said we are going to finish the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it didn't happen. But since it is the last page, Daf Kuf Zayin in Kumi Ori, I have to share with you briefly. I don't know how many of you were in shul on Friday night. I mean, some of you don't live here, so I'm just going to share with you a nekuda that we shared on Friday night that is so shayach to today's learning. It's startling how we're seeing more and more that things are adding up. Things mamash are. Everything we're learning, doesn't matter what sefer it is or whatever, it's all coming together. It's all coming together. We were talking Friday night about how this last week that we had was, let's face it, a week of such pain, such pain, such darkness and raw emotions. It's lo yuman to wake up, to wake up every morning the way we were waking up. It shouldn't be like this week. Hashem. And we're tasting places of pain and sadness that none of us have ever experienced. On the other hand, and that's like the lowest of the low, the pain of all pain. But on the other hand, we're also experiencing some kind of hitalut ruchanit, some kind of a spiritual elevation, and witnessing heroism like we've never experienced before in our lives. And it's by people that, are in our lives. And we're witnessing that as well, which is taking us to the highest place we've ever tasted, ever. Witnessing things of gvura like we never tasted before. But then, in between those two nekudot, in between the nekudah of that low, dark, horrible, awful pain, darkness, can you pass me one of those pages, please? Thanks. In between those two nekudot, there's another plane, there's another world. In between the two, we're exposed and tasting something that's not the low and not the high. It's nothing to do with low or high. And that's the nekudah of emet, of truth, which the more our souls are stretched beyond words, the stretching is actually pushing us towards a nekudah that's called emet, truth. And we mentioned, in the name of Reb Nassan Breslover had said this, that like Rabbi Nachman his Rebbe does say that the whole world is but a narrow bridge, but that bridge has a name. And that bridge, the name of that bridge is emet. And the only way that someone can make it through this world is by discovering touching, getting involved, being integrated into the world of emet, of truth. The tzaddikim don't need to be stretched like this in order to find themselves aligned with this bridge. But us simple Yidden have this is our way of understanding what our avodah is right now. And our truth is something that we're seeing less and less and less and less and less and less in the world. It's less and less and less and less of truth. But there's the pain that we're experiencing together with the being in, I think the best word would be awe, the awe that we're standing in front of these chayalim and chayalot. These two extremes are basically forcing all of us to understand that this is kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar, v'gesher atzar ze niya yoter v'yoter v'yoter tzar kol yom. The bridge isn't just a narrow one, it's getting more narrow every single day. V'ikar lo litpached klal, but if you know, without a shadow of doubt, that what you're engaged in is in a journey of truth, of emet, connected to emet, then you won't make yourself freaked out, you won't be scared, and no one can do anything to you. No one has anything on you. Now, why am I repeating that? Because this whole perek that we've been learning with Rav Sasson about the Geulah is all about the word komimiyut. And komimiyut means two komot, that there's two levels in the Geulah. There's komat nefesh and there's komat guf. The level of the body experiencing a Geulah, and the level of the soul experiencing a Geulah. To a large extent, I'm recapping now 3 months of learning, to a large extent, percentage-wise, a tremendously large amount of the Am has experienced komat haguf. But even those that have experienced komat haguf doesn't necessarily mean that they've experienced komat neshama, that the soul is actually removed from the shackles of galut, from the shackles of exile, and all of that it does to us. Now, in a world where you could clearly see spiritual advancement, we wouldn't be in such pain right now. We'd actually be even besimcha, as weird as that, as crazy, as impossible as that seems. But if I saw in front of me that I'm spiritually advancing more every day, more and more, towards a world of emet, then despite all the pain, but I knew it, I saw it, I'd be able to even be besimcha right now. But because this world is olam hasheker, this world is mamash, the world of lies, and we're seeing it more and more. I mean, if I asked any of you, what do you think the world would look like if something like Simchas Torah, if I asked you this on Chol Hamoed Sukkos, what do you think the world would look like after, if Chas v'Shalom, something like Simchas Torah this year would happen? So it's easy today to say, oh, it would look exactly like it does today, but probably we'd say there'd be such an uproar and a final understanding of what we're really dealing with. There'd finally be an alliance internationally by everyone understanding that this is absolute evil and that they're next. That's what we'd probably say. And we're witnessing a reality, raising children into a world of sheker. It's sheker. Now, so how come we're not crawling under why didn't anyone come out of their bed? Like, why are we, who had the chutzpah to get off the pillow this morning, right? Like, ma'azeh. It's because we know that we're not waiting for the world to be enlightened with what emet is. It has to start with Am Yisrael in its entirety. Kol Yisrael arevim ze lazeh, in its entirety. The emet can only happen in one place, here. Now, I'm warning everyone, I'm very triggered this morning by something that I saw from Chutz La'aretz, and I'm holding back like a really good boy right now from not sharing, but you'll hear it in today's learning, in terms of where Yidden that represent Hashem, where is the energy being put to make sure that the emet becomes clearer. And it's a very, very hard, it's like Hashem makes it so hard to not judge right now, because that's another clear indicator of how much sheker there is in the world, because it wants you and entices you to say, listen, start judging those that don't really taste the emet the way that you're saying it, in the name of God. And I'm like, mamash, like I'm telling you, I'm sharing, holding back tremendously. So we should just have a lot of atzlacha as we're ending this parak to understand how to hold on and how to even, not be b'simcha, but like if we've been saying that all these shirim about staying focused and staying directed, just a tefillah to keep on staying focused, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And please have Rahmanas on us, because you see how difficult it is for us, and yet you see that you're not done with us. We keep on coming back. So if you're stuck with us, make it better, make it sweeter. Nitkata itanu. You called us an Am Kshei Oref. We are stiff-necked people. Daf Kuf Zayin. Imken, if everything we said until now about the need, about the period that we're in, which is one long Sfirat HaOmer, are there any extra pages at the end of the table? Shira, do you need?
Sure.
Imken, Zeu Perek HaZman Shu Bechinat HaShlav HaRishon Shel HaGeula. Let's call it what it is. This is the first shlav of Geula. She'am Yisrael Omnam Chozer LeEretz Yisrael. We came back home, ach adayin lo nithar tahara shlema, but we're still not fully purified. Why? Ki tahara hapnimit, the inner tahara, the real purification happening deep down inside, yechola leiyot rak be'eretz Yisrael. What does that mean? It means that the full, complete picture of a purified product, I don't like to say it like that, but the full picture of tahara, it can only happen here. So physically, the physical impurity, beseder, we want to believe, we want to understand that by being here, we rid ourselves of the Tuma, of the physicality of Galut. But the next shlav, which is what will complete the Geula, is the Tahara of the Nefesh. And that process can only happen here, and that doesn't happen overnight, and apparently, it doesn't happen in 75 years either. But no one said that it doesn't happen in 76 years. Bitkufa zo, Kayam irbuv. There's a whole mixture going on in this period that we're living in. Ki mitzad echad hageula hechela. On the one hand, we believe that the geula has begun. The process has begun. Ve'aretz nivnet. And the land is being rebuilt. And no one can ignore the fact that those processes are happening. The best example given is the floor upon which we are sitting. Nachon? We're in it. We're in a living example of this piece of the process of Geula. Aval mitzat sheni, we cannot hide from the fact sheruach hatuma adayin lo paga, that there's no expiration. The ruach, the stench of Tuma has not expired yet. It's still around. It's still out there. It's still all over the place. Elu sheyarei hagalut hanefesh, bli galut haguf. This is the remnants. It's the shirayim. It's the remnants. It's the leftovers of the galus of the soul without the galus of the body. Meaning the body is redeemed. Right? The body is redeemed. It's here, but the galut of the nefesh, the remnants of the galus of nefesh, is still here. כי רוחם של ישראל עדיין מושפעת מרוח האומות וטומאתם. Because the spirit of Am Yisrael is still influenced from the spirit of the nations of the world and their tum'ah. Davar hamitbateh, how does it get expressed? Thank you. How does the ruach of the tum'ah get expressed? It's not just culture, like we were saying before. It's not just the ruach hatuma of the nations of the world means that their culture is here, and look at Israeli society. It's not just that. But he says something very specific, and he didn't write this in the last 3 months. Look what he says. Davar hamitbateh, how does it get expressed? Bepachad mi'umot ha'olam. By living in a state of fear from the nations of the world. That's a state of impurity of the soul. A pure soul, a soul that has gone, the nefesh of the Am, that has gone through purification, lo mitpached, ulo mefached, v'ulo mitpached. That's not part of the things that we're still busy with. You understand? Living here with the geula of the ruach of the Am, of the nefesh of the Am, would mean, זה לא שאני לא אכפת לי מאומות העולם. It's not that I don't care. אני לא מתחשב. I don't...
Take into consideration.
Yeah, when it comes to how to conduct myself here. That's not the way I don't take it into consideration. It's not the way I operate. אני לא... דבר המתבטא בפחד מימות העולם, and then he says, ובהימשכות אחר תרבותם. Meaning, yes, you're also drawn to the way that they conduct themselves culturally, but really a chunk of this, a big chunk of this, and we're seeing this, we're living this, is that the galut of the nefesh is expressed. How do I know that I'm still under that domain? Is when I have so many cheshbonot about Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael that are all basically after I've taken into account all the cheshbonot of the nations of the world. I did speak to one chayal at a very weird conversation who said to me, Shma, it's a very confusing time because he says, I want to go in there and just finish the job, but I know that I'm packing my gun with ammunition that came from America. So what exactly am I supposed to, how am I supposed to be approaching how I engage with the enemy? This is exactly what he's talking about. Irbuv. Total mixture. It's so confusing. It's such a mixture. Deep down inside. Mamash. Next paragraph. במובן מסוים אפשר לומר, in a certain manner we could say, שהערבוב והמורכבות שקיימים בתקופה זו, the complexity and the mixture that's taking place in this period of time, due to the ruach Tuma שעדיין לא פגה לגמרי, because the spirit of Tuma that hasn't completely expired, מקבילים לעובדה שימי ספירת העומר הם ימי דין. You know what מקבילים means? It's parallel. What did we call this whole period that we're in? Not just 49 days, but it's been 75 years of Sfirat HaOmer. And what are we doing in Sfirat HaOmer? We're physically out of Egypt, but we're working day after day, midah after midah, on purifying our basic midot in order to have a full mikvah where I'm clean. As you know, you cannot become tahor if there's what's called chatzitza. So now we're speaking about the chatzitza of the nefesh, right? I could jump into a million mikvahs today. And like wonder, how come the ruach HaTuma is not pag yet? That's because there's chatzitzot. What's the chatzitza over here? What's chotzets? Ruach HaTuma. What's ruach HaTuma? Huh? You know, it's so much. It's such a thick layer of chatzitzas. It's not a simple like little dirt. It's mamash kacha. So this is why this period is so intense, because he says it's parallel to the days of Sfira, and the days of Sfira really are Yemei Din. It's days that you gotta up it up a lot of notches. It's not like Baruch Hashem, we're out of Egypt. Now we just have to dance, make sure we're besimcha till we get to Matan Torah. It's not like that. It's deep and intense soul work every single day on a different midah that's in that makes me who I am. מקבידים לעובדה שימי ספירת העומר הם ימי דין שצריך בהם זהירות יתרה. You need extra caution on the days of ספירת העומר, כמבואר בספרים הקדושים. You know, this is a big tikkun because a friend of mine that was dabbling into Yiddishkeit, he didn't grow up with it at all, but he's a very deep thinker. And he fell in love with the period of Sfirat HaOmer when he learned the pnimiyut of it. He didn't spend any time in shul. He just was learning Torah, and then he learned a little bit of pnimiyut on Sfirat HaOmer. So he said, I'm going to go to a shul, and I'm going to see what it's like in shuls, what Sfirat HaOmer is like in shuls. Like excitement, this, right? So he went to a Mariv one night, and all he heard was, that's all he heard. And so he asked me, he said, oh, they didn't, he was so tamim. He said, that shul didn't get the memo about like where could I go to a place that got the memo? Then I realized he was trying to, he wasn't as tamim as I thought. He was trying to dagger, like, well, where are the shuls where they're actually when they count Sfirat HaOmer, it's this, experience, this moment of one step closer to being fully pure. One step further from being shmutzik. That's Sfirat HaOmer. Those are intense moments. Those are intense times. So here he says, the world that most of us have been born into, and the world that we're bringing our children into, is a world of Sfirat HaOmer. That's the period of time we're living in. And those are very serious days. Kach horu lanu. Chazal have told us, she'avodat Hashem b'yemei HaOmer tzricha liot bedikduk v'zehirut. You got to be very medukdak, very exact, and very cautious during the time of Sfirat HaOmer, shelo lifgom bekochot hanefesh, because you cannot blemish at all any of the powers, any of the kochot that are coming from the soul, which means liishamer me'akas v'aktata, not just becoming people like this during Aseret Simei Tshuva. Like, okay, now I'm not going, or an Elul. Like, now is the time to refrain from anger or refrain from having any machloket. It's got to be our mitziyut. Our whole life has to be like this. Pirudim ve'asin'ah, from separation and God forbid hatred. Ulizaer b'chol ma'aseh u'pe'ula, and to really be extra cautious with everything that I'm doing. It's a whole manifestation of life. It's not an action. It's not a time. It's the whole mitziyut. It's our whole reality over here. Remember the person that said, everyone's so medakdek to, on everything between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but the real ones are medakdek on everything between Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Nachon? Between Yom Kippur, you got it? Between Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Rav Sasson is telling us, listen, what your soul is really calling out to is that you really understand the time that you're living in. And this is the time that we're living in. I don't have to stress the notion that these are times of din. These are Yemei din. They are. This tkufa of din, even though they didn't tell us this on the calendar, and it's not Sfirat HaOmer yet on the calendar, and it's not Elul yet on the calendar. You need Elul. Do we need Elul or Sfira to make us want to truly experience Taharat HaNefesh? If I know that my avodah and my midot is a shield and an armor and a protector for the chayal that's going to wipe out Amalek from this world, what wouldn't I do? What wouldn't I do? I'd do anything in the world. Nachon? Yeah.
I don't want to trigger you more than you might be already, but if I heard the same thing that you heard, which is likely, I was wondering, what do we do with those feelings when we're not supposed to have past and
It's so... Why? Why are you doing this? No, I was saying... I don't know. I have to cry to Hashem. I don't know. I'm Amet, I don't know. I prepared 3 voice notes at 6:15 this morning, and I didn't send any of them. Like, I don't know. And then I brought it into my shachris, and I just cried, like, mamash. I don't know. I don't know.
But definitely let the smaller things go. I think we could go with that, right? The smaller things we could let go. The bigger things that are...
Yeah. But that's not such an isayon. It's an isayon, but it's not such an isayon when it comes to the greater things. Nachon?
I don't want it to feel close to you and still hurtful.
Nachon.
So like those, I think that is something that we
Yeah.
can work on.
Yeah. Well, a chassid, a misnagid once came to Reb Nassan of Breslov after he heard about Rabbi Nachman's teaching of Aamra. Aamra is the teaching of, finding the nekudot tovot in everyone and judging everyone favorably, and you got to do it to yourself as well. And so the chassid said, listen, it's such a beautiful Torah, but I have such a hard problem with this teaching. I said, what? He said, if you hold like this, then how are you going to ever fulfill the mitzvah of rebuke? Of tochecha, there's a mitzvah to rebuke. So Reb Nassan says, I have an idea. We'll try to mekayim all 613 mitzvahs, but leave that one as the 613th mitzvah. Meaning, leave tochecha if you're really obsessed with saying you went through this world mekayiming all 600. Well, there's a problem with that in your head also, because one of them is, machzir gurushasal, which means to remarry your divorcee is a mitzvah. So don't put your orders of, put things in order, right? So I always think of that, like with what you brought up. I always go back to that teaching from Reb Nassan, as hard as it is. and to trust that that Hashem will put the right words in our mouths and coming out of our hearts when they could be be'ofen hamitkabel, in a way that can be heard. It still doesn't calm down the sa'ara inside. But we need a lot of yisad v'shmaya to not even something that's so holy that we really believe is so b'shem Hashem and so holy, to breathe it in before acting upon it. And this is Sfirat HaOmer, Lizaher b'chol maaseh pe'ula. Because what is Sfirat HaOmer? Look at the end of this paragraph. Ki elu yamim shel ben hashmashot, ben tkufa letkufa. It's just like, it's the changing season. It's the season turn. This is the season when it's all shifting. Sfirat HaOmer has the most shifting energy than any other time in the season. Mitzad echad yatzanu ma'galut. On the one hand, we're out of galus. Mitzad sheni adayin lo banu lekdusha ashlema. On the other hand, we haven't fully came to the full kedusha. Now, how does this connect to something that we're learning in the men's shir? This is, I don't know how many of you listen to any of those shiurim. You can if you want. It's just, I don't even know if I send it to this group.
You send it.
I do? I don't even know. If it gets sent by Yisrael, Loda, but there's a thing which we're learning from Rav Ginsburg about, called the tikkun of the Medina, fixing this thing called Eretz Medinat Yisrael. And he points us to the amazing thing is that the two most momentous occasions regarding the current modern state of Israel happened during Sfirat HaOmer, which is Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim. Like, as if we needed more direction towards the avodah of the nefesh right now. And he points to the month of Iyar, that it's a whole tkufa. Sfirat HaOmer has no yantivs, has no chagim, besides the yantiv of Pesach Sheni, the holiday of second chances. And Sfirat HaOmer brings about us a second chance, and a third chance, and a fourth chance to letaher hanefesh shelanu, to purify our souls. That's the avodah that we're in right now, avodat hanefesh. And Rav Sasson says like this, third paragraph. This is the hint, this is what's pointing, all this is pointing to our generations we're in right now. Ad asher navo kulanu b'mayim chayim, until we all go into the purifying waters. B'tshuva shlema, complete repentance. V'yusru kol hatumot v'abilbulim mikirbeinu, and all of the impurities and confusions will be removed from our midst. V'tzrichim anu lehisham. Doesn't that sound amazing? All the impurities and the confusions will be removed mikirbeinu, like from within, not outside, whatever is inside. Now he says, "V'tzrichim anu lishamer." So the shmira has to be shelo letameh chalila et hakodesh. Don't, God forbid, impurify the holy, the sacred. Shelo lehistaev beruchot zarot sheibalbelu ra'ayonei levavenu. Do not get don't get swept by foreign spirits that come and confuse the ideas of our hearts. That lashon, being swept by foreign spirits that come and sweep up the ra'ayonot of our hearts. This is mamash Rav Kook, but he's saying it in our language today. When Rav Kook would say words like this, who was he referring to? Socialism, communism, Marxism, Zionism. Sorry for saying it. Even Zionism. What was he saying? Is that the young pulse, the pulse of the young generation, is flying, is on fire for something that will make sense, that will keep up the pace with the ideas of their hearts. Meaning the idea of the heart is, it's got to be much better than this, right? It's got to be better than what I see in front of me. They weren't seeing any of that from the Yiddishkeit that came from the old school at the turn of the century. But where did they see hitlahavut? Where did they see enthusiasm and passion and some kind of emerging of a lot of the ideas of their hearts? You know how holy communism sounds in the beginning? Like the basic fundamentals of communism. Obviously, you know who started communism. It was all Yidden, right? Russian Yidlach. Marxism, socialism for sure. Listen, welfare, all these things. Like, there's all these ideas in the hearts of a young generation of a better world. It's got to be better than this, right? Hanan Ben Ari is a song that came out on the last album and it didn't make it that big till now. Because now it's called Yesh Kan Yoter Mize. There's more than what meets the eye. There's more to this story called Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael than what is now. Rav Sasson is saying that is always in the heart of the young generation, an idea of a better world. It's always there. The question is, what are you feeding it? What are you feeding that tzaka? You know, to me, I tell you, like, Mehmet, this has nothing to do with the trigger. It's just a different trigger, but it's not really a trigger. I hope it comes off the right way. I can't stand when the response to what we're going on now is make sure, like after davening, there's 2 extra shir amalets. Why? Now, why do I still allow it to happen here? Because I understand there's a need to add. I get that, lagamri. But the roaring soul, the roar inside the kishkas can't hear anything that reminds us of what was before Simchas Torah. So just again, a clap and the Hashem, I'm like, even that melody triggers me right now. Mm-hmm. Does it sound insane? Like even the melody itself, like I know it's coming from a good place, and they just did it here after Shabbos. And they asked me if it's okay. I said yes. And I say no, you can't say more Tehillim after davening. But there's a roar within the pulse of the generation that Yesh Kan Yoter Mize. There's more is needed. And a ruach zara, he says, what happens is when it's not fed, when it's not shown a way to express itself, it gets swept up by other cultures that enable a scream, that enable it to come out in a way that other places told us, no, it just doesn't work like this. Now, someone wrote a whole piece based on what I just said about those precious people that were dancing at the Nova Festival. That he said no shul would accept the way that they're expressing life. So they said, we got to go and start our own. They didn't say this, but what came out was we got to go and do it our own way. Do you know how many children from homes were killed there? Do you know how many kids from homes were injured there and survived there, Baruch Hashem? Loads. Not 20, not 50, more like hundreds. More like hundreds. And you wouldn't believe it. Thursday night, we went to Shuva, and someone came from another community, and he saw we were going down there, and someone I've taught in his home, this person, nowhere near here. And this guy's dancing, he's on fire, and then he came up to me, and he whispered into my ear as I was taking a break. He said, my son was at that party, and he was saved. And now he's, whatever, I'm not going to say anything else. I don't want to reveal what it is, but person you'd never think in a million years, right? All these neshamas, all these big, we have to realize it, like part of the ha'avara of ruach tuma, part of the avoda here is not just becoming more frum. You understand? That's not what he's saying here. That's not how I'm understanding this. Let's get more frum until we completely removed all the Tuma from Eretz Yisrael. If our souls are being stretched the way they're being stretched now to tap into emet, right? Then that must mean that we have to figure out a deeper way of portraying the Ribbon Shalom, portraying Yiddishkeit. Deeper. It's more than it's got to be more than that. Mamash mechila for saying it, but it's just, if we're not going to be real in here, then when will it just be real? The call it there too, but you know what I mean. It's not this.
Well, it's the same thing you just said about the power of Saint Spirit, our Aamra with power. Like what the story was. It's the exact same.
You know how scared I am of Tishrei B'Av this year? Do you know how scared of how judgmental I'm scared that I'm going to become this Tishrei B'Av? When I'm going to see programs about keynote and this speaker and that speaker discussing that element of Churban Habayit, whatever, and I'm like, already know that inside me there's such a roar of rage of saying, are we out of our mind? What more do we have to go through to bring the taste of Churban to our generation in a way that can be related to and understood? and without feeling guilty that we're changing the Masoret. You know what? There's one Masoret I'd love to change. Tisha B'Av. No, wouldn't you? Not a Masoret you'd like to change up a little bit? You wouldn't? Would you be okay if the calendar continued perfectly without Shlosh Shavuot? I think everyone would be okay with it. No, it's not from. Isn't the point of like where we're moving towards is a Geula calendar? No, we can't mess with that. It doesn't work like that. The confusion's right there. Sheelot rabot olot mitoch hachayim. So many questions are. Life is posing so many questions. ובהירות הקודש עדיין לא הופיע עלינו להנחותנו בדרך אמת. And the clarity of holiness is still yet to appear upon us, to guide us in a path of truth. Now he connects where we started Shir. Zeu ma she'amru chachamim, that the Gemara says in Sota, be'ikvesa de Mashiach, in this time of Mashiach, ha'emet tiheh ne'ederet. Truth will be ne'edar. That's a word we unfortunately know very well. Truth will be missing. Emet tiheh ne'ederet. It doesn't say kedusha. It doesn't say simcha is going to be missing. He says people are going to be running around the whole world looking for emet, and it's going to be missing. The whole world is going to look like sheker. V'tzrichim anu ladat, and we have to know. She'i efshar lechol ha'bilbul hazeh lasur. The only way this confusion can really be removed is only ela al yedei taharat ha'mikveh v'matan Torah. Only through sfira being sfira. כי לא נוכל למצוא בהירות ושלמות במתכונת חיינו הנוכחית בלא הוספת קומה עליונה. I'm going to first translate it and then riff on a little bit. He's saying we won't be able to find a complete full picture of what we're looking for in the life that we're living without adding the next koma in the word komimiyut, meaning it won't add up here. And living here is not going to add up until the kedusha, until the depth element of living here begins to be the norm. It won't add up. Meaning we're going to keep on getting stuck. Our heads are going to keep on getting stuck. We're going to feel like we say, rosh bakir. We're going to keep on banging our heads on the wall until we realize that our essence of being here must be resulting in a spiritual revolution. The military hatzlacha is dependent on the spiritual revolution. That's how Hanukkah worked. The spiritual revolution, the spiritual revival of those, not just of those that only do with Torah and mitzvahs, dafka of those that do. Dafka of those that are under the impression that it's all working out because they're frum. Dafka by them. The koma, the next koma of neshama is what we're waiting for. And until that happens all over, we're going to keep on wondering, I don't understand. And we'll keep on going, we'll feel holy for a few minutes, then it'll keep on going on. That's what he said over here. The bilbul will keep on happening. It'll keep on happening. Ruach HaTahara shetavod, the spirit of Tahara that will come, titen banu lev chadash. It's going to bring us a new heart. V'tifkach einenu le'avinu le'askil. It will open up our eyes to understand, le'askil, to learn from what we're going through. Lehabit minikudat gova al kol musagei hakodesh. This is so beautiful, these words. Ule'avinam bevehirut rabah. To look from a higher point on the concept of what holy means. A galut way of looking at holy means I have nothing to do with the world. I have to be far away from anything that may confuse me. And kashrus has to be the most machmir hechsher. And what else? Come on. Throw more things into the mix. Sneer. Like, the only thing about sneers is mamish. You don't even show one of these, like mamash. And what else? What else? Come on, what else are you're scared to say it now, but what else falls under this thing called like the old way of understanding Kodesh? Goyim are Tame, only Yidden are holy, right? All these things.
The spectrum of Lashon Hara.
It's mutter, yeah. I mean,
But how how you can speak, and then it's a range.
Yeah. What else? What other things? That in the old school, the old way of saying this was holy, you're saying you have to look at holiness from a much higher place. Now I'm telling you, without learning Pnimius Satara, without learning the Sifrei Chasidus, without drinking the fountain of the Baal Shem Tov, of the Alter Rebbe, of Rabbi Nachman, of Rav Kook, I think it's impossible to understand what he's talking about. To gaze at the concept of holiness from a higher realm is what's needed in order for this ruach of Tuma to be removed so that things get clear again.
Well, davening every word versus his bodhidut and picking.
Not instead, benosaf,
right.
in addition.
You have to be careful.
In addition.
Like, people could take this thinking that, like, halacha is not as relevant.
Right, now that's a Golos way of looking at it, saying, oh, holy means, for the New Age, is that halacha isn't relevant. It's not that, it's that halacha guides me to look at, the vessel of halacha guides me to look at things from a much higher place. It's not saying, God forbid, that any of the things we said shouldn't be done. It's saying, what's the focus? And who else is included in the picture? How many Yidden is it so easy to write off in the name of holiness? And that forces you to go. Anyone that learns something from Rabbi Nachman even warned, he said, learn my Torah any way you want it to mean whatever it means to you. There's this one boundary. That's called the Dalet Amos of Halacha. If you derive from what I taught you that you should go over the Halacha, caution, that's not me talking to you. Everything else, yes. Like, stretch it to whatever it means to you, nachon? In order to understand bebehirut rabbah, to understand clearly to get through the mixture here. Af shifat birkat Torah titrabe bekirbeinu. The blessing, the shefa, the abundance of the blessing of the Torah will become greater in our midst. Ruach hanevuah tashuv. Don't get scared from this, from what he just said right now. But the spirit of prophecy will return to us. That is not something that was just part of the past. Ruach hanevuah tashuv bekirbeinu. The spirit of prophecy will return to our midst. Ora shchina bechol milu'o ya'ir et chayenu. And the light of Shechina in its fullness will illuminate our lives. Yezeh kisrichat hashemesh be'or boker. Like the sun rising. Or hadat va'akara. The light of knowledge and the recognition. Hitbaharut ha'chaim, clarity, life becoming clear. Ve'yekitza mitardemet haruach ve'anefesh. What is it called when someone wakes up from a coma? Is there an actual word for it? When you wake up out of a coma? Because here he's saying the word yekitza. Yekitza literally means like snapping out of the coma of the soul and of the spirit. That's what it's going to be like. When there's this glow, when all of us understand what we're doing here, and all of us are together treating life here like Sfirat HaOmer, and this understanding, Chevra, we went through the massacre of all massacres, the worst thing since Auschwitz, Mamish, the worst thing since Auschwitz, and if they could do it now, they themselves said they'd do it again. You think the only response is killing them? That is a vadai. All of them should be shechted. But then there's going to be another group of people that wakes up and feels the same thing until the Am understands, what are we doing here? We came back to Eretz Yisrael to have the ruach of prophecy returned to us. Not just to have barbecues on Yom Ha'atzmaut. Yeah.
How about clarifying, out of curiosity, question that I'm stuck on from earlier. So the way that I've been understanding this time and in general is that we have like build-all confusion within ourselves, and then the world is like our mirror of what's going on inside us, right? But then earlier you were saying about foreign spirits like sweeping us over. So like, is it like a circle? Or is it, like, which one is it? Is it that we have confusion inside us and then that allows for...
Deep inside us, we have no confusion. We just haven't accessed the place inside of us that knows that Moshe Emet v'Torato Emet. The confusion, the mixture is not coming from within. It's coming from the outside, convincing us that that's what we really think about ourselves too. It's all outside. And the inside, the neshama of a yid, there's no confusion at all whatsoever.
But inside our mind, right? Like
we allow.
so much in, and then inside there's like this confusion because we haven't stayed connected to our neshama.
But if I remember that my neshama never got contaminated from this,
right.
But I have to create the access point to my soul. To remind me that if I have this confusion here, it's reminding me that's not really you. That's from the outside.
I'm more asking, like, you know how there's a concept of whatever, like the world is like a mirror, right? And so whatever's happening outside of us, it's usually once we get clear and connected to our neshama and yashar within that, then it won't be so confusing anymore, right? But then you were also saying about like how spirits could sweep you away, like the world outside of us. Do you hear now more?
Not exactly, but I want to finish this and we could discuss this afterwards because I really want to understand. I just know that there's a Rosh Yeshiva that's coming to give a shir in 5 minutes. I have to greet him properly, so that I just want to finish this piece. But I'm not, don't let me off the hook with this. Like we'll get there. צריכים אנו לפעול ככל שנוכל להסביר ולבאר את דרכה של תורה. We have to try to the best of possible to explain and to deepen through the lens of Torah and of Halacha, ואף להתאמץ ולזרז עצמנו אל עת הטהרה, and to be courageous and hasten ourselves towards that moment of purification which will happen, זריקת המים החיים, בתפילה ובהתעוררות תשובה בקרב מחנה ישראל. That from within the Am there's a massive, again, using words like tshuva movement, won't do it today either. It's something deeper than that. אך עם זאת, הננו עומדים ואיננו ליד צופות. We're standing here while we know of everything that has to happen. And until that happens, we're sitting here and we're looking up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, שיערה עלינו רוח ממרום, to sprinkle upon us a spirit from above. ויתארנו מכל הבלבולים והגידולים, to purify us from all of the mass confusions that have infiltrated into the minds and the hearts of Am Yisrael for so many years. וייתן בקרבנו לב חדש ורוח חדשה, and he'll place within us a new heart and a new spirit, meaning Hashem can do anything. I never know when the avoda ends, but until that happens, I have to do whatever I can on an action level. But don't forget that in any second, the following psukim, which we began this whole parak and ending with, can happen right now. V'yikayem banu mikra shekatuv, from Yechezkel Lamed Vav, and all of this is based on two chapters. And if you want to really understand everything we learned, go back to the 2 chapters, Yechezkel Lamed Vav and Yechezkel Lamed Zayin. It's all there. 2 chapters. וזרקתי עליכם מים טהורים, וטהרתם מכל טומאותיכם, ומכל גילוליכם אטהר ונתתי לכם לב חדש ורוח חדשה אתן בקרבכם. והסירותי את לב האבן מבשרכם, ונתתי לכם לב בשר, ואת רוחי אתן בקרבכם, ועשיתי את אשר בחוקי תלכו, ומשפטי תשמעו ועשיתם. וישבתם בארץ אשר נתתי לאבותיכם, והייתם לי לעם, ואנוכי אהיה לכם לאלוקים. ויהי רצון שנזכה במהרה בימינו למעמד אדיר זה. אמן, כן יהי רצון. Okay. Should be a week of Nisim and Niflat.